The walk sign, a clear sign that you're gonna get 2 minutes of break before the actual day begins. Well, this day started like any other day with a red light. And I know if I wanna paint this car by the end of the day, the light has to come on really early in the morning. There's just something about the smells of the body shop in the morning that just hit different than it does in the middle of the day. Maybe it's because your senses are still fresh from waking up. But in this particular case, I was ready to hit it hard and get all my parts in primer. And from there, we were ready to get it to the next stage. And there's probably nothing more rewarding than painting a black car and it coming out good. That's why we changed the Like90 mat in the booth before we brought it in. It always brings a smile to our face. But one thing that doesn't bring a smile to our face is this really shoddy tripod that we are gonna use today. The truth is that half these jobs would probably be done in half the time if, well, I didn't record. And it's all about kind of getting a shot. They give people like us a name of influencer, which I don't really like. I'm a teacher. That's the one thing I've always been. I teach you guys how to paint cars. You go and apply the knowledge, you show me what you did. You're like my students. And I really, really enjoy that. And everywhere I look, there's temptation right around the corner. And well, it's not always what you see on camera that you can always believe. It's what these quote unquote influencers are not showing you that often happens behind the scenes that I will show you. I'm really enjoying making those intros. These videos, honestly, they can get monotonous, they can get boring for me. This is real life painting, guys. You guys deserve to be entertained, learn something while we're at it. There's two types of videos for Paint Society. They're the hardcore do-it-yourself videos, and then there are the videos where we're out here, we're having fun. And that's what we're gonna be doing today. We feel like we're painting the same exact car that we painted in the previous episode, and the fact is, it is the same exact car, but it's not the exact same car, if that makes sense. It's the same model and a very similar job. Let's see what we got going on today. We have this beautiful Honda S2000. The car had no damage, just wants a nice refresh. It's getting the front end refresh, getting a new bumper, CR lip. That's gonna look amazing. And as well as just gonna blend it into the doors. I'll tell you something, black is not black. There's a lot of different tones to black. Black is brown, black is black, black is a little bit red, black is a little bit blue. So in order to ensure that it's gonna match, especially on the older car, you gotta blend into the next panel. So a blend basically is putting paint onto the next panel and then clearing. And you're only putting paint about halfway up. Now, there was a little chip here, so this is a little bit far and we still need to clean off this panel pretty good. It's not ready for paint yet, but there was a little bit of chip here, so we're gonna take our paint a little bit further, and since this is black, we'll be able to get it away with it. But generally, you're gonna keep that blend right into this area. So we're all ready to go. We're gonna give it a nice clean and get started on our sealer. All right, everything is clean. If you look at the doors now, you can see now they look more uniform. Before they look scratchy and weird, but once you clean everything, get a lot of that dust out of the panel itself, it looks really uniform. We use water base and we use solvent. Now, if you look over in here, again guys, this is not metal. This is the primer underneath. Let me show you what we got going on, what we use. I talked to you guys earlier about the two different types of primers we used. So the first one we use is a really thick primer, gray urethane surfacer. Anything that says surfacer, for the most part, is going to be a thicker primer. We used a 1.8 to put that on. We blocked it out, 320, filled in all the chips. Well, we feathered it out first, sanded it all down, and then we put that on there and it filled in all the sand scratches. If there was any micro chipping, that fills it in as well. And then we're going to use color build on top of that. That's what we use. That's the black you see. Now, the black you see here is either primer or sealer. It can be mixed up both ways depending on the additives. And I talked about this in many videos, but it's always a good recap if you're new. So if you want to mix it up as a primer, it gets mixed up with these two additives. And again, it says surfacer, but it's not as good as surfacer primer is as that Lessenol stuff. So you can mix it up as a primer here, or if you want to mix it up as a sealer, which is non-sanding, then it'd be basically these two guys over here. And the ratio for this is 3:1 and it's a little bit similar. We mix this up in a computer, it's 3:1 to something else. I gotta check it out, but it's a little bit thinner and it goes on smooth, and you don't sand the sealer. So that's kind of where we're at now. I'll get this mixed up. The gun that we're gonna be using is probably one of the best, and even Juan behind the camera, he agrees. The W400 WBX is one of the best sealer guns on the market. It's specifically designed and made for sealer, and it will atomize that sealer coat so well and so fine that when your base goes on top of it, it's gonna lay down flat, your clear coat's gonna follow. Let's go hit it up. We're all ready to go, and I'm all suited up. Guys, I talk to you about the lab coat all the time. Colad makes the most comfortable lab coat on the market, I'll tell you that much, because before I had the Paint Society logo, I was buying these from Colad, and then we decided, hey, I want to get my name on these, and I want the folks from Paint Society to have it. So every time that you guys go ahead and represent and purchase one of these, and you send me a picture on Instagram or whatnot, I repost it, because honestly, that's the best way to say thank you, that you're supporting the channel and you really like the merch. We're gonna go ahead and get these all nice and clean with our tack rag and seal them up. All right, it's been about 20 minutes. We let that sealer dry. We're gonna be using the LS400 from Iwata. Man, this gun really atomizes so fine. And yes, the green tape is so that no paint from the cup flakes off. Since it's 2.0 PPS, it uses the same cup. But yeah, LS400, I'm finding around 20 PSI works pretty good for atomizing. So we're ready for the base coat. Now, remember that we had just done one of these, and majority of that car was completely factory painted and was really black. This car's been repainted and it's more brown. It's something I noticed right off the top. And if you look at these two, these are two of the variances. And what do you guys see there? If you look at that, okay? What I'm seeing is the top one is a little bit browner, redder. The other one is a little bit more brilliant black. So even though we are blending into the door, we still want to blend the right color, right? We don't want to look at the car visually and the front of it looks darker, the back of it looks browner. We don't want that. So we've already verified the color, but I want to show it to you guys here. So when we look at it, although this looks brown to me, and visually you would think that that would be the right color, when you get it against the car, our other variant here, it matches the respray much better. And this one right here, which we've already done a spray out of, and we confirmed that it matches, this is the one that we're going to use on the car. So if we just take a look at blacks in general, these are from different cars, different blacks, and we can see that there's just so many different variations, and this is just a few of them to name some of the blacks that are within the system here, black paint coats, and they're not all the same. So just keep that in mind when it comes to spraying, that you never know what kind of color you got. Always try to blend it out. Now we're going to be using the LS400 Series 2 here for base coat. I will tell you the DV1 base coat is my favorite base coat gun, but I want to get a little bit more familiar with the LS400 Series 2. The one thing I do like about these Series 2 guns is the way that they atomize the paint so fine, and that's what we need when it comes to spraying black. Now the fenders and the hood, they're in black sealer, and look at this. This is the reason for black sealer. This is a reason for sealer. We've got one coat coverage, basically. You see, what's gonna happen if you seal is that sealer, when it dries, it has like a barrier on top that the paint sits on top. So if you primer it, remember, your primer, you have to sand your primer. When you sand your primer, it cuts open that barrier. So when you go to put the paint layers down, usually it will soak it up a little bit more like a sponge. Whereas that sealer, it's going to dry with that barrier on top, where the paint just sits on top rather than soaking into it, and obviously the benefits of the coverage. I'm going to show you a little trick of mine, guys. I got this new Milwaukee DA sander. It's going to be available soon to you all. This is the 3/16. You could have used the 3/32. Tell you, don't like sanding in the booth. I'm going to tell you, you can put this on a low speed. After your first coat of base is completely dry, I'm talking 30 minutes. All right, we want this to come out clean. I'm running over it with 800, and I see a lot of dirt.
in the finish that is getting flattened out. I'm not ripping through it. I'm just running over it very, very lightly. Solvent paint isn't always the cleanest. When you seal it, it's gonna add some dirt. But I'm telling you right now, this little trick of mine, and some of you have used it before, is going to give you a smooth finish, less buffing. Trust me on this one. All right? We're not bringing a big old DA sander in here. We're just going on the lowest speed here. We're barely taking anything off the surface, just any of those little dust nibs. It's gonna smooth it out. And for that second and last coat, when it goes on here, silky smooth. A lot of guys will get in the problem of going too soon into it, and your sandpaper's gonna build up little nuggets on it. And when that happens, that's the beginning of the end. Wait half hour. I got a half hour here. Now I know when I do this, this thing's gonna come out nice and smooth. Completely nice and smooth. And then you can use your water-based cleaner and a microfiber to wipe it when it's all done. All right, feeling good about this one. And I only really do this on something I really want nice, on black. I don't do this on everyday cars, guys. But when you want something really smooth, really nice, this car doesn't have a lot of orange peel in it when it was resprayed, so we want it to come out nice. And we're gonna follow this little tip and trick that I give you guys. And this DA sander, man, makes a huge difference. Probably one of the coolest things out right now, well, coming out, that will be available to you all. So when you got all that dust there, no problem. We're not making a big cloud. We're gonna take the water-based cleaner and a microfiber. We'll spray her down, can wipe it. See, a lot of you guys don't know that are maybe new what you can or can't do. You think once you spray the paint, God, you can't touch it anymore. That's false. You can touch it. Make sure you got a nice clean microfiber. I'm not wearing gloves right now, but not a lot of my hands actually touching it. And once you do this to all the panels, you're ready to lay down that second coat. And anything after that, you cannot sand. So you'll put clear over that. But this little trick on black, every single time is gonna give you much better results, because if you didn't take it out now, you're gonna have to take it out later. And who wants a wet sand and polish something black? All right, finish up wiping up the rest of the parts, and we're gonna move into that second coat. This is what you guys want, a nice sleek finish, and that's what the sealer will get you, because you got one coat of sealer and then only 2 coats of base. You don't want to pile this stuff on too much, because then it starts to get not smooth. Your base should be smooth. We're using extra slow reducer, and we're mixing it up 70%. So when you mix it up 70%, adding 20% more reducer, and you're gonna get a nicer, smoother finish. So that's what we're looking like now. We're ready for clear coat. Gonna be using the WS400 Series 2. Atomizes so well, why not? We don't have this taped off here because it's a brand new cup. So after this job, it'll be taped up for future jobs. So we're gonna go ahead and not hit these up too wet, but the hood we'll put a little bit more material on, because we want that to be a little bit flatter. Generally your hoods, your flat panels are a little bit more smoother. Your sides will have a little bit more of that OEM texture. Let's go.
And now we're ready for the first coat of clear. Now, kind of getting back to sanding the base, a lot of folks might not have ever heard of it. Some folks probably have done it before and they know what I'm talking about. And some folks really don't understand why. Well, let's talk about when you do it. So you're gonna do it on the coat before your last. So let's say you put 3 coats on and it's dirty. You're gonna sand it down when you know you only need 1 more coat. Now, I always tell you guys, 1 coat plus coverage. You're gonna sand it down, and then that last coat will be enough because you already have the coverage. Now you can even do this on metallic as well. If you're gonna do it on metallic, make sure you're doing it with 1000 grit. You're making sure you at least wait 30 minutes. If you don't wait long enough, it is going to gum up and it's gonna be a disaster. You can see here laying down the first coat of clear. If you're doing this sanding method, especially on the hood, it makes a huge difference. Now, I will say that there was really no dirt on the door panels The fenders were pretty clean, but the hood had just a little bit of dirt that we wanted to smooth out. When it comes to buffing anything, especially black, it's just really tough to get it to shine back up with swirls again. So we're gonna go ahead and do this process on mostly any of our flat panels moving forward. Just a little bit of 800 grit is all you need. And I will tell you that new Milwaukee DA sander that will be available, hopefully, depending on when you're watching this, in January, we're hoping, that is a game changer because you can really set the speed very low. And that removes a lot of the user error of trying to rip through too much of the coats of, let's say, sealer or base. And I always do recommend putting base coat down over your sealer and then sanding that. Don't sand your sealer because it kind of has a layer that kind of skins over and it doesn't sand as well as, let's say, your base will. But let's go ahead and check out the results.
First coat's gonna look something like this. It looks beautiful, but we ain't trying to get it fully wet because we don't want to build up the edges. Notice that there's no paint at the edge here. Obviously, there's paint at the front here where the fender will go. So we'll put down the second coat here in just a little bit. We got the booth flashing at about 120 degrees for about a good 10-15 minutes. Really get this paint dry, but look how nice that first coat looks because we did that little sanding. We don't want to buff black. You do not want to buff black. And yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to get away from here. So it's looking pretty good. This one's looking good as well. Yeah, that's the second coat. And honestly, I'm not gonna look at it too much because it's like 8:30 at night and I wanna go to home and have a nice night and go to bed, and I don't wanna be thinking about this all night. So if I look at every little thing, it's gonna bother me all night. So I'm gonna come back in the morning and we're really gonna look at it. So this is all we're gonna get. Yeah, it looks good, right? I don't wanna look too deep at it. I'm happy with it. Looks super shiny, looks good. Let's come back in the morning and really check it out.
And we're up the very next morning and we're ready to go back into the shop and see how the paint looks. It's always entertaining to see what happened to the paint once it dried. You know, paint doesn't always look exactly the same after you applied it and you left that night. Sometimes it can run, sometimes it can solvent pop, sometimes it can die back. Those are the three main things that you're gonna see overnight after the paint is cured, especially if you're over applying the paint and you're not allowing it to really dry. That's why sanding the base really helps out on that hood. We don't have to apply more than 3 coats. We can just put it on, let the paint do its thing. We can see the gloss level, the retention of this gloss is beautiful. This is PC by Sickens. It is one of their slower clears, not their slowest, but slower than PC production. HS Plus Slow is gonna be their slowest. And you can see it's Halloween here. I got my favorite shirt on. This is probably one of my most favorite shirts to wear when I just want to crack someone's smile, you know. But we're getting this thing all pulled out. It came out really good. You can see I barely fit into these small cars, but with the convertible down, it's completely different car. Now we also got the bumper painted and we are adding the CR lip. This is actually a brand new bumper. This is a CR bumper. It has the holes, and we got everything for the most part installed. We'll get the bumper installed later on. We're still waiting on a couple of little small things. There will be not that much buffing. You could see that the gloss retention just a couple days later is still brilliant. Now if you find that it's pinching or if it's dying back just a touch, you can always sand it down with, like, let's say a 600, 800 and flow coat it, or honestly just put one more coat of base and clear on it. Don't be afraid to repaint things sometimes, guys. Sometimes when you repaint it, if you already have that foundation of clear coat and just sanding it down, it comes out much better, because sometimes putting layers and layers of paint over primer, it can come out a little bit rough if your procedures aren't perfect. But we're moving on as well. We have this right-hand drive Integra to do. We have a front bumper, and just the way we do them all, we paint them completely white, and then we come back with the grill inserts and do all SEM black trim. And man, these things really come out slick. So really enjoying working on these older vehicles. They do require just a little more attention to detail. Guys, this is Brian from Paint Society reminding you, don't overthink it. It's just paint. I'll see you guys on the next episode.